deer antlers. Now, I'm not a horn hunter. I'll shoot a doe just as fast as I'll shoot a buck. Sometimes faster. I'm a meat hunter, but I enjoy to hunt. And I have a lot of doe skulls in my den from doe I've shot. But when you shoot a buck, you know, you get the antlers. And to me, every one is a prize. I've got some spikes mounted, and I've got a nice 10-point, all the way up to a 10-point mounted. So the 10-point and the 8-points are full mounts, full shoulder mounts. But I have a lot of, you know, 6 points and 8 points, 4 points, even a 10-point that's mounted on a plaque. So there's a lot of ways to do it. I've done it a couple different ways. I'm going to do it a little different this year. I'm going to try to make something a little more different than what I've done in the past, out of oak or mahogany or walnut or even pine I've used. I'm going to try and use the shiplap. Now I could just you know, cut it out and mount the antlers just like that. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to turn it like this. I'm going to put a seam in it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. And again, like a lot of my videos, this is not a this is how you do it. This is one way to do it. This is how I do it. Don't get hung up on anything in life that there's only one way to do things. There's a lot of ways to do pretty much everything. There's different ways of doing everything, and everybody has different personal tastes. You may not like this shiplap color, and that's fine. But you can use the same principles on a different. I've used everything from vinyl laminate flooring to, like I said, pine, walnut, mahogany. And one thing I want to do someday is I want to use a piece of wood with the bark on it. I seen one of those one time and that looked nice, but I think I'm going to save that for a European mount. So anyways, pay attention and see what's going on here, and if you have questions or whatever, always put them in the comments. Okay, because I'm going to use this shiplap siding. This is left over from my bathroom. I want this seam to be part of the plaque. So this is, you know, it's designed to be nailed to a stud or to a substrate of some sort. So this is scrap. I found a couple pieces of scrap, 3/4 I had laying around. So I'm going to use this as my backer board. And I'm going to lay this on there, and what I'm going to do is we're just going to screw this down where the antlers are going to be mounted, basically. Now, I'm not just going to screw the skull plate to it. I'm going to show you how to make a mount. We're going to wrap it too. Okay, I had a slight accident with the glue bottle, but in the world of glue, more glue is not always better. A nice thin coverage is generally going to be stronger than a big wad of glue. So yeah, this was a mistake, and I'm showing it. All I'm going to do is they just clip together like that. Boom. There's not a lot of, at this stage, there isn't a lot of detail work here. So all I'm going to do now is we're just going to glue and screw this together. Screws underneath where the deer mount, where the antler mount's going to be. That'll hold it. I'll cut a design out of here, and that'll get rid of these outside corners anyways. So now, I mean, you know, now we just let it set and dry. You know, we're gonna stick it on the bandsaw. And if you don't have a bandsaw, use a scroll saw. But this is what we're just gonna let it set here and dry, prop it up somewhere. So any glue there, just run to the bottom. Well, that's it for now. Well, it's been a couple weeks since I glued this board together. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna trace onto the board the pattern that I'm going to use. Now, remember, this pattern can be anything. I have plaques I've made that look like arrowheads. I've got them round, rectangular, different shapes, and it's whatever you like. If you like a round one, make a round one. If you like one that's square with rounded edges, then do that. You know, this is mahogany actually, so you can see how dark it is. That's why I wanted to try a little white one. So all we're going to do now is I am going to use this pattern. It makes a nice mount. You know, you got a spot here for a little brass plaque if you want, where you can, you know, stencil your name in. So this is where we're at right now. So I'm going to change the camera, and then you can see me trace it, and then we're going to cut it out on the bandsaw. So I want to figure out where I want this seam. The seam from the shiplap. I think I'm going to put it kind of behind where the mount will be. Just going to do a outline. Now this mahogany one is a piece of scrap that I picked up when I was working in a furniture factory, so it really wasn't nothing I bought. And that's part of it too, is try to use stuff that you can pick up for free, or use a piece of wood from out in the woods where you actually shot your deer. And doing this too is also, I have a bandsaw, but you don't need a bandsaw to do this. If you make some different shapes, a nice little scroll saw, or if you make it square and sand it right off, you can do it with a skill saw or a table saw. So I've got it. Now I'll cut on the outside of the line, and then we'll sand down to the line. Well, here it is, kind of the rough cut. You can see the badge emblem right now. And this is how the edge is going to look. Now, I haven't really decided what I'm going to do with the edge yet. I think I'm just going to paint it probably an off-white. Maybe a gray, I don't know. Now, I wasn't trying to make the back smooth, I was just trying to get my seam level so it would hang tight on the wall. It's a little bit thicker than what I think I really wanted, but it might add to it. Might give it some recognition. Now to hang it on the wall, I have a what's called a keyhole bit for my router. It goes in, and then you go over, and you pull it straight out, and it creates a round hole here, and then a real skinny line, and another round hole on the way out, so it makes a hanging bracket. Now the trick to those is to get them level. You don't need that. You can use a picture hanger. The back of this one, I just have actually a piece of flat steel I straightened out. I think that's about it on this for now. Let's work on mounting them antlers. On this part, I straightened off the cut on the bottom of the skull plate there. Now we got to make a mount
to mount the skull plate to mount to the plaque. And to do that, I just use 3/4 inch piece of scrap. You can kind of see on this one, there's a piece of 3/4 inch here, and a piece of 3/4 inch in the back. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to cut it to the width. I've already made that mark. I'll make the cut. Then we want to cut how high we want the back of it. And we want to add 3/4 inch to it so the bottom part can bolt to it. Now each one of these is going to be different, so you kind of got to custom make them. So that's there, and you can see it hangs down 3/4 inch. And all I did was just make a mark at the bottom of the horn, took that piece of scrap, and then spaced it out. So this is just going to make my square part. I still have to make it round. I want to make the base next. So all I did was I just put the skull plate on the back piece. I'm holding the bottom portion on there, and I'm just going to make a mark to give me my height. Okay, you can see what I did. And I'll line this up, I'll screw it together, and then we're going to round off the top and the bottom. So here's what I'm going to mount the skull plate to, and then that will mount to the plaque from the back side probably, or front, I don't know. So what we got to do now is round off these corners. Try as symmetrical as possible, and here too. So round these off to try and make it, you know, like this. So that, I mean, to do that, I mean, it's basically just freehand for me. I suppose a compass or maybe something round. Coffee can would probably work. Beer can would work. Something that's going to give you a symmetrical corner. So all you want to do is just round this off. Just kind of want to come up, round it off a little bit, and then a little bit of a flat spot, and then round it back off. Here's a trick I learned. I made one nice curve, just free-handed it. So in order to duplicate it, all I gotta do is stick it on this side, flip it over, and I can trace it, and I can duplicate the corner on that side. And I may be able to do the same thing on the bottom too, just like that. And I can use that as a pattern, and it'll duplicate my corners. And I can just stick it on the sander and get it good enough. The buckskin or the whatever I put on it will hide any blemishes. Okay, well, here it is. Pretty symmetrical, close enough. I'm going to cover it up anyways. So all we're going to do now is I'm going to drill a couple holes in the skull plate, and we're just going to screw this thing right to that. And then I'll show you how to cover it. Now, on this one, you can see that the buckskin is pushed down. And I don't want that on this one. I want it nice and rounded. And what I've done on other ones that I found out that works really well, I've tried foam rubber, I've tried a lot of things with cloth and stuff like that, but good old-fashioned plumber's putty, you can usually buy it generally really cheap on sale. You know, maybe some sort of modeling clay from Hobby Center. And we'll pack that all around this, and it'll smooth out these spots and all this. And then we'll cover it. Well, there it is. I just covered it up with the plumber's putty. Now I'll get some sort of buckskin leather or something, and we'll wrap it up. I'm just going to let this set out for a day or two and kind of harden up a little bit. Plumber's putty doesn't really harden all that well, but just enough to make it a little stiffer is all I need. Ready-made kits. The plaque's made, the covering's made, everything's all made. All you have to do is just trim the skull plate a little bit, screw the antlers to the plaque,
and cover it up with the provided bone cover, skull cover. So here's a couple different options to look at if you don't want to tackle cutting your own plaque and going through all this on yourself. This is a quick do-it-yourself kit. Get your feet started and, you know, get you familiar with the process. Now here's one made by Super Hunter. The plaque, the leather cap, and here's one that's made by Hunter's Specialties. It gives you a choice of a red or a natural color buckskin. The nice thing about the antler, screw it off, clean off the skull plate, get some of the extra off, clean off the back of it, and then this basically is set right over it and cover up everything. Once you get it all trimmed down, it'll cover everything up. So there's a little bit of trim work to do on the bone itself, but that's how that works. And these ones here is the same principle, the same basic idea, but you got to cut out where your antlers are going to go, so it gives you a little more work, a little more detail. But here's two quick ones. I just wanted to show these. These are options you can buy at, you know, any sporting goods store or most any big box store, Walmart, Myers, whatever, during the season. Hello, just a quick commercial break. If you like my videos, you like my content, please subscribe. But don't forget to hit the notification bell so when new videos come out, you'll get notified. Thank you. Cover the deer mount itself, the plate, the skull plate, and around the antlers. And I'm going to show you how I do it. In keeping with this one being a little bit different than the other ones, I have some orange chamois goat skin. I have a huge roll of it. I always wondered what I was going to do with it. I saved it for some reason, so I thought I would use it on this one. And this goes along with what I'm trying to promote here, is that there's a standard for you. Don't worry about what other people's standards are, or how they're doing it, or what's going on with theirs. You know, do you want yours to look like theirs? Well, then fine. Or do you want something a little bit different for your own to bring back a special memory for you? So I wanted to make it look a little different and set it up a little bit different. That's why I used the shiplap to make the badge, to make the plaque. So I've already shown you the mount and how I've got it mounted to the bench to work on it. So I'm just going to set the camera up and point it so you can see how I'm doing it. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different materials. A red plaid cloth might look sharp. A material, duck material for off a Carhartt jacket. I don't know, so a rabbit skin, you know, so you have some fur, a piece of deer hide. A natural colored covering is generally what I use. So there's all kinds of different options that you can use, and it's for you, not for anybody else. It's what you're doing. So use that. Maybe a piece of camouflage material. Maybe I'll try that someday. That might look pretty sharp, I think. There's all kinds of different options that are unique, special, that look sharp, and that look good to you. So that's what you're kind of wanting to do here, is to make something. This is making it for yourself or a family member or somebody special, a good friend, whatever. So you want to make something for you and for them that you made, that when they look at it, they're going to know, hey, wow, he made that for me, or she made that for me. That deer brings back these memories. That's why I'm doing this, is so you can not be afraid to do something on your own. See that it's relatively simple, and understand that there's no standards. You can do this how you want to do it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, first thing I do, is I just cover up the bottom. And to do that, the easiest way I found is good old-fashioned hot glue. And that can be easily just put on
And then just cut off a quick amount of the extra. All you're doing here is just covering at the bottom. Now the glue isn't necessary. You can fit it, cut it, and easily tack it in. And that's how I used to do it. But what I learned is that just to make it simpler in the process, because this doesn't really show, I just use the hot glue. I'm not worried about that. We're just going to cut it right out because it's going to get covered up anyways. All this is just going to wrap around and cover up the bottom. There, the bottom's covered. That's how quick and easy this goes. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover up the top. Okay, I cut off a real big piece here. And I'm going to find the edge I just want to put on the bottom. And I'm not too concerned, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this over a little bit like this. Okay. And then I can wrap it around here. We'll glue that on, and then we'll start working it up. And that's where it gets a little tricky, especially trying not to get wrinkles in it. And the reason I'm folding it over and gluing it on, because when I roll it over, then I can take a sharp knife or a pair of scissors and I can trim right off on the bottom. Or right here down the middle. I can trim right here down the middle. And it's not going to affect the finished product. If you wanted, you could probably cut off a little bit of extra right now so you're not working with so much material. That's entirely up to you. Now, I have noticed in the past working with the hot glue is it will cause bumps underneath. So you want to make, when you sure you put it on, you smoosh it around really good to even out any glue lines, any glue bumps. Especially if you're using a lighter duty fabric like this, it'll show those little glue lines. So get that on there and just let it set for a minute or two to make sure it's good and tacky. And then we're just going to bring it up and over. Now here is where it gets a little tricky, at least for me, is you want to cut at this base. You don't want to cut past it. So I always cut relatively heavy extra material, so that way it tucks in underneath and I can cut off extra material. You can always cut off extra material. So once you start doing that, when you cut that line to get around that antler, you don't want your line coming up here. Try to run your line right straight off the back of the antler. Okay? I don't know if that makes sense or not on the camera, but it'll make sense here when I get done with it. If you cut it here, that line in the fabric will be right here. You'll see it. So if you cut it here, that line will be directly behind the antler, which then it'll be mostly hidden, and you want to cut this direction, because that way if there's a mistake or they're going to see a line, it'll be on this back side. They won't see it as much. So this is where the extra material would kind of comes in the way.
probably similar to a Y cut that a taxidermist would make when they peel the hide off the deer skull. Okay, so now we're just going to bring this around. And all this does now is we're just getting it up and over, and we're going to work these wrinkles out. So this is where definitely what I would say less is more. Small cuts first. See, look, it'll pull around. It'll pull around and then be wrinkle free. See, now you can really cut off a bunch of extra material that you're not going to need. It's just now going to get in the way. And that's all I'm doing right now. I'm just getting extra material that's in my way out of there. Now you can take and put a little dab of glue back here, and that'll hold this straight. So then you can start cutting in underneath your antler. And again, like I said before, watch out for your wrinkles. I'm not so much worried about the glue lines right now. I mean, if you wanted, you can, while the other glue's setting or you're thinking about your next move, you can trim this off the bottom. So now you see it starting to take shape. So now we're going to bring the top around. And this is where it gets kind of tricky for me anyways, because I usually end up cutting off too much material, or I don't get the line right back here. I think what I can do is I think I can glue in this top part. And the nice thing about the hot glue is it's nice, but it's not super strong. So you can, you know, remove it if necessary. It's not, it'll tear off. Okay, now you're starting to see the form of it, which is coming around, and I'm kind of digging the orange here. So now you want to work in one antler at a time. Now I don't cut down below the burr. You want to cut above the burr. I will say that cordless glue gun is nice. Holds heat surprisingly well. Okay, Now on this burr, what I do is I try just to roll it under. Tuck it under. If you get too much, so it will wrinkle up on you, so what you can do here, if it's not looking the way you want it, or you don't get it cut close enough, and it just doesn't look right, you can take a different color or the same color or a piece of hemp or jute rope or something and wrap around the base of it. Nice piece of little rope laid around the base of it, maybe a piece of paracord or something, and that'll cover up anything that you're not happy with. Now you can inject a little bit of glue underneath there. You don't necessarily have to use hot glue. In this case, maybe a fabric glue or heck, even wood glue would be okay. Not gonna hurt. I did this intentionally with my knife. Razor blade, an X-Acto knife, any of those will work as long as it's sharp. But that's it right there. I mean, I just got to fit in this side. Now, the reason I'm not concerned about this down here right now, or up over here, let me finish fitting this in, and then we'll get on to that. But I did this with my knife intentionally just to try to emphasize the lack of, you don't need a special tool. I've made a lot of these sitting in my chair watching a TV show. And I'm not known to have a sharp knife most days. Now, I noticed that with the chamois, and with buckskin too, so it stretches, which can be a blessing. Can also be a hindrance, because getting it to stretch in the right direction sometimes is not as simple as what you'd like it to be. I might put me a piece of paracord around here just to there you go. Well, there's the mount right there. And if you want to leave it at that stage, well, then it's yours. You can do that. However, this is where a different color might look cool. As I get my length, come around here to there. I just get a length of it. A little extra. Cut yourself short. Leave yourself some working room. I want it semi straight edge, so you know, I'll clean some of this jaggedness off. But this is nice because you don't have to have it perfectly straight by doing it this way. Anybody who's ever cut any sort of hide will tell you it's next to impossible to cut it nice and straight. But I'm not going to glue it here. I'm going to glue it on the very bottom. Okay? So I'm going to go here to here. Now I got wood, there's wood here to here. Piece of 3/4 inch pine. So I'm just going to glue this here about halfway up. Okay. Cut a good chunk of this extra off. And then we're gonna fold it up like this. And see, I'll give you a nice straight edge on the bottom. What you're going to do is try to fold it twice. You might have to make a relief cut. Now, see, by folding the top edge over, you get your nice straight line. So we want to glue it. And I don't worry about gluing in the middle in this part. I'm more concerned with out here. Let that glue set up for a minute. So there. Now you got your band and it covered up all that stuff that was there. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing up here. Now this is the reason I wasn't really all that concerned about gluing the middle. I like these little copper tacks. We can use these bronze tacks, they're a little larger. We could even use these. Find your middle. Now I would go to here. I go to the outside, right in the middle of the outside curve. Keep your height the same. So you keep your distance the same. Now you can add 2 more in the middle of these if you wish. Right here. And right there. Okay, now around here in the back side, we roll this over, then we'll put one here on this back corner, and then that will make it continuous. You could probably get a little more detailed if you wanted and measure it out. This one's specifically mine, so I'm happy with it looking a little rustic. So I might pop this one out, and that's the thing about using these is you can pull them out, stick underneath there, pop them right out, and then you can move it up if you wish. There we go. So now the top band, we do the same thing. We get a piece of material that's long enough. You have a piece of leftover from building it, then great. Okay, my battery died just as I was finishing up the banding on the other skull. Didn't realize it. And then I got down here and I was working on this one and figured I'd show you another way to do it. So I just take the leather material, whatever you want to use, and I just wrap it around the plate of the mount and get my length. And I just make a mark. And then I put my ruler on it, and I cut a nice straight edge with a razor blade. Now the wood is 3/4 of an inch thick, and that's kind of you can make the band as wide as you want. I am just trying to cover up the edge of the wood and where I've attached the material to cover it. So I just take 1.5 inches and make a mark. I'm going to show you how easy this is to make. You lay your ruler on that mark, or a piece of steel or a straight edge, whatever. Take your razor blade, and cut it somewhat straight. Now this is not going to be the finished edge, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now I've got my material, and you see me just kind of freehand it, and that's one way to do it. you can make a mark at 3/4 of an inch, and I just run my glue between the mark and the edge of the material, whether it's cloth, leather, doesn't matter what it is. I just run a bead of glue there, and I just bring this over to the mark, just like that. Now you can draw a line down the whole length of it. You know, when you press on that glue, try to smooth it out so you don't get ripples and bumps behind it. And then do the same thing to the other side. And just meet the edges. Rubber cement works really well for this also, but it has an odor to it, so that's up to you. Hot glue doesn't have an odor. Okay, now I've got my piece of banding. Now I'm going to show you on this mount that I just did over here how it turned out. This is the finished band that I just made, and this is another mount. And as you can see, I used a natural color hide here, and then I used a brown hide there, and I used little copper carpet tacks, or weather strip tacks, to do it. There's some copper tacks here. You can use them, or you can use the brass or bronze colored thumbtacks, whatever you want to use. Heck, you don't even have to use any glue. You can just or any nails. You can just put a bead of glue on there and glue it. The whole point of this is to show you all the different options. So I'm going to go mount this, and then we'll finish this video up. Okay, as you've been watching this video, as I'm trying to show you how I make different deer plaques and different deer mounts, fur horns, antlers, European mounts, different things like that. We're coming to the end of it. Stay tuned. You can see some of the different mounts and stuff that I've done. Here is the one that you've seen me primarily build during the video. I painted the edge just an off-color beige. I might go back and paint it black yet. I haven't really decided. As you see, the orange and the white shiplap, I think that it come out different than the rest, and I'm pretty satisfied with it. This is a buck I shot last year with my rifle, with my muzzleloading Remington 700. There's a video on my channel about me shooting that, showing you some of the differences in bullets and powder charges that I've experienced. I shot this buck at 100 yards, and he literally dropped where he stood. If you look at another video, Hunt 2015, you'll see a 10-point that I have a shoulder mount of. I shot with that gun, and it was about 110 yards, not much different from where I shot him at, and he dropped right where he stood. Unfortunately, you can't actually see the shot because the person that was doing the videotaping for me covered their ears, and when they did that, they raised the camera up and then they lowered it back down, but I had already made the shot. Comment on those videos. Tell me what you think. If you look back at my videos, you'll see a video called My Brother Jim. He's wasn't my biological brother, but we've been really close for 20 years. This was, I believe, his last buck, or it was definitely one of his last bucks. I don't know if it was exactly his last one or not. I got to look into that. But this rack was given to me by his wife. So I made this mount. This is birch bark. I cut off of a dead birch tree in the Kinawa Peninsula. The frame is pallet wood. I just ripped it down, mitered it, inset it up against a piece of 3/8 plywood. And you know how I did the wrap because I did it the same way with the 6-point. So if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas or comments, you know, subscribe to my channel and put them on there, and we'll talk about them, and we'll work through them. Stay tuned here for a second, because there's some other mounts that I want to show you that I've made in the past. My dad has made, my son made. There's some different ones there I'd like to show. So any questions, comment, let's talk about it. Let's come up with some ideas for another project, or maybe you can show me something you've done. Or if you run into a problem, let's give me an idea. Maybe I can give you an idea on how to work through it. Well, happy trails. Well, this segment of the deer plaque is just to show you some of the ones that I've built, my father's built. This is one of the first ones I made. My dad made this one. My dad made that one. This is one I've made. That one I haven't. This one I haven't covered up yet. As you can see, these are all with the kind of the badge design. This one I've got a piece of leather here cut in the shape of an arrow, and I've got an arrowhead that's supposed to be glued on there. I just haven't glued it back yet. It fell down. Well, I just put it on top and leave it there for now. Over here is some more different ones I've made, different ones I've had made. I made that one. As you can see, it's a little crooked, and I didn't put the banding on it like I did this one, and I didn't fold this one over, and I didn't put tacks on it, and that one I just put tacks on it, and it's off center. You know, that's that one there is probably 15 years old. That's a little 3-point and a spike I shot. This was my nephew's. I lost my nephew last year, and I got his rack. This is one that he put together, and I believe his grandfather, my father, helped him make that. All 3 of those bucks I shot with a bow on a Halloween day. My son made the mount, and I started mounting the antlers to it. I still got 2 of them to cover. That's a European mount that I made. I didn't actually shoot that deer. I did put a stalk on it, but I didn't shoot it. That was my Uncle Milton's buck. That was my Uncle Earl's buck. These are a pair of bucks from my cousins. That one here is my Uncle Travis, and this is. So as you can see, this is a family thing for me, and that's one of the European mounts that I just made, and that's my Uncle Kenneth's buck. Now, those are just ideas for you. You know, you can make them rectangle, you can make them round, you can make them in the shape of an arrowhead. There really doesn't have to be a designated shape. All that one is a badge, and I just elongated it. I believe that's mahogany there, and that's probably pine. That's a mahogany. That's oak. This is actually laminate flooring. So I made a nice thin one. So this is just, you know, to show you how you could maybe do something if you chose to. So take these ideas, look at them, take what you want from the videos, and use them. And well, click and subscribe on them. Like my videos, comment, tell me what you did, and tell me what your ideas are, and we'll go from there. Thank you for watching. As always, please comment, subscribe, click that notification bell. I have a lot of different videos ranging from everything from firearms to raising chickens. So some other short ones. Hope you enjoyed this. Next one, it should be on completion.